Welcome everyone, and hello. It's lovely to see so many familiar faces and some new ones here today. I'm Rebecca Hill and I'm going to be facilitating today's session along with my colleague Catherine Trudenick. And at this point, I would just like to say we're going to have a very interactive session today. So we've got lots of conversations planned, some great questions. It's going to be all around the energy transition and the leaders that we need. We're going to have some group work in breakout rooms for those of you who remember Jamboards. Yes, they're making a very happy return along with Mentimeters. So we're going to encourage you to, if you want to be as interactive as you can, keep your cameras on if you can. I appreciate some can't, but we would love to hear your thoughts, ideas. Do feel free to use the chat as well. The chat is where we have some great exchange normally during these sessions. So without further ado, I am going to hand over to Rana Adib, who's the Executive Director of REN21. Many of you already know Rana, but handing over to Rana now to give the sort of formal introduction and scene setting. Hello, Rana.
Hello, hi, how are you doing? Hello, everybody, welcome. Very excited to be here with you on a very important topic. I think the reality is we're living in disruptive times. We all feel a real urgency, and from REN21 side, we clearly believe that leadership is key in driving change. And I think what our DNA at REN21 clearly is like collective leadership. And we'd like to have a discussion with you and tap into your brains, like how you understand this, what the expectations are, etc. To kick us off, and especially for the ones who have not yet heard some of our thoughts on this, I'm just going to share a couple of slides with you. And hello, Rebecca, actually, very excited to share the space with you again.
Hi, Rana,
Sorry,
it's great to see you. No worries, it's great to see you.
It was like a... So I think just to kick us off, I said like the DNA is basically or collective, and the community is at the heart of REN21, as is renewable energy. And I think this is really, especially for the ones of you who don't know us so well, I would really like to underline again, the starting point of REN21 is clearly a global community of renewable energy actors from science, academia, NGOs, industry, and governments. And this sounds messy and continues to sound messy, but it's actually very strong because it's reflective of the ecosystems in which we are operating when we all work together to make renewable energy happen now and make the shift to renewable energy happen now. So we have our members, we have this plus 3,000 community members. And historically, we have really started to work with those members to provide and produce collective data and knowledge. So very clearly, we have like this decentralized intelligence is at the heart of our activities. But the reality also is our annual publications we are producing are not enough. So having great report on the shelf is actually not enough. And this brings us to how REN21 has evolved more. And I think it's really something which is important when we are speaking about leadership, is that building on this community and crowdsourced data, we build up very important knowledge products, but to inform and influence decision makers, but also to influence the dialogues and debates and shape them through basically convening dialogues and debates, through communication campaigns. And the objective here clearly is to change basically the norms. When we're looking back to the past, we see actually all the way we have already gone. And sometimes that's what we're forgetting when we look into the future and see all the work that still remains to be done, especially in urgency. The reality is, and I think this is also something which is important when we speak about leadership, is keep focus. Sometimes look back, but also have a certain urgency and ambition. I think it's really, there are tensions that are there, but we need to balance those. Now, to probably underline the urgency and the ambition we need, and many of you have already seen it, but you see, this is a comparison of total final energy consumption from 2019 compared to 2009. indeed, when we're looking at the share of renewable energy, we have seen that renewable energy has done lots of developments in those 10 years. And represents now a share of 11.2%. The reality, unfortunately, is that we consume more fossil fuel than ever. And in the current energy crisis, this is unfortunately not going to change on the short term. But I think collectively we need to make sure that we're just bringing renewable energy massively to the forefront. On the right side, we see that massively on the forefront also mean that it's not only the power sector. Obviously, electrification, solar PV and wind are very important in driving the change. But in heating, cooling and transportation, we also have other solutions. And these are actually the sectors that are lagging behind significantly. I think that's something which is very positive because we see that those sectors have more attention to renewable energy than historically. The other part, why leadership is so important, again, is it's not only leadership within our bubble, it is leadership outside, because what means making renewable energy into the norm also means making renewable energy a societal choice. So many players need to engage here. And I think this is just something to keep in mind, because us, and here I'm speaking about any of us as a leader for the renewable energy topic, is actually has the potential, the responsibility to some extent also, to broaden basically the sphere of influence on the renewable energy topic. And the other part is we're speaking about massive structural changes. So here, driving change, I think, is really also important to identify what are tipping points and how do we get there? How do we strategically get there? And that's clearly something which, from Rent on one side, is something which we have started and we will continue to do in a more focused way, more. How do we bring also intelligence, information to this community of change makers so that each of us can become more effective in what we're doing, more influential? Why this? Because the reality is that we need a very strong renewable energy voice. And let's be honest, one of the challenges of the renewable energy movement, I guess, is that it is not only about renewable energy. It can be about PV, geothermal, etc. It can be about energy access. It is about sustainability. It's about efficiency. It's net zero. It's development. So there is actually lots of different narratives. We're competing with very centralized narratives from the fossil fuel industry. And so I think this already shows that leadership, when we're speaking about the renewable energy topic, needs to be thought in a different way. Because all those narratives obviously have their justification and their legitimacy and their credibility also. And the advantage is that they talk to different players. But what needs to happen is that we collectively manage to bring this together to become influential and really put renewable energy at the heart of many discussions ongoing. And this is basically where Rent in One's focus is when it comes to building renewable energy leadership, is basically on those pillars. But then also, how do we make basically this voice strong? So how do we build a broad, credible, cross-sectoral renewables voice? How do we amplify those narratives? How do we also bring them together? And I think here we have two focuses from Rent on one side. One is clearly this community, and that's all of you basically sitting around around this virtual table here. How do we what can we bring to this community so that you can grow even more in your leadership role, push basically in areas where we might not be pushing yet, become more influential, etc. What do you need from us, actually? So this is clearly a question to you. But then the other part is also, what information can we bring to you so that we can also explore new ways of influencing? And the third angle is providing basically tools, a platform for this voice to thrive. And this brings me to some biometrics, biomimicity. I think there are different words basically on this. We had done in one of the Renewables Global States report, which you all know, and is building on collective intelligence. We have approximately 400 people participating in every report. We looked into developments in nature and how they can also give indications on technological developments, but also on how to build community leadership, etc. So from Rana side, we operate very much as a network of networks, as a community, and as an octopus. We have in the Secretariat, there is a consolidation, so there is a central brain, so to say, but there is decentralized decision-making, intelligence, and brains. And this is basically, this interconnection really means a lot of strength and powerful ways of informing, of collecting knowledge, of driving change. So there is already, in this thinking, another way of leadership. This is now for Rana. Now, we are all individuals, and as individuals, so very clearly, I don't believe in we need leadership and these are some few individuals. We all have a leadership role as change makers. And so this is the butterfly effect. I think this is the way it was called. So butterflies, a very soft movement of a butterfly has a massive impact, as you can see here on the picture. And I think this is really something which is important, and especially those times where sometimes we question what is the impact of our activities. I think as an individual, if we have some impact, it does have an impact on the environment, and this will be amplified. So I think it's really interesting to look back to the past and really see how little things can have massive impacts, because that's also our action today might look very minor now, but will create like a movement and amplify basically change in the future. So that's the individual leadership. But obviously, as a network of networks and as a community, we believe that individual leadership together has even more impact. And I think this is basically the power of many. So when you're looking into swarms in nature, whether it is fish swarms or birds or bees, etc., we can already, I mean, just this picture, I think, tells the power of individual leadership together and how this can basically drive change. And so from my side, I'm probably ending here on some of those graphical inspirations more, because from Rana side, we already have this platform. There is a community. We would really like to explore with you your thoughts on leadership and also your thoughts on how Rana can support you in your leadership role, and what we can do together to make sure that the renewable energy voices is there, heard, influential, and can really make that we work strategically toward the tipping points to clearly move out of fossil fuel and into an efficient and renewable energy-based future. That's it from my side.